I held the guest pass application with the same hands that had signed deployment orders, sending 7,000 sailors into combat zones. My brother thought I couldn't afford the $75 fee. I'm Catherine Morrison. People call me Kate. I'm 47 years old. I'm a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy. I'm also a widow. My husband, Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, Navy SEAL, died 6 years ago in a classified operation somewhere in the Middle East. They gave me a folded flag and a posthumous silver star. They told me he died a hero. They didn't tell me how to stop being a wife and start being just me. So I buried myself in work, commanded ships, led sailors, earned my stars, built a life that didn't need anyone's validation. My brother thinks I work in military administration, filing papers, answering phones, the kind of job that in his worldview, a woman does while waiting for a man to give her life meaning. The truth? I command the USS George Washington Carrier Strike Group, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 10 escort ships, 75 aircraft, 7,500 personnel, $24 billion in hardware. But today, sitting in my car at Harbor Point Country Club, I'm just Jason's little sister, the one he's graciously sponsoring for a guest pass because he assumes I'm broke and alone. The parking lot stretched before me, filled with Mercedes and BMWs and Teslas that probably cost more than most sailors made in 3 years. Through the windshield, I could see the clubhouse, all stone and glass and carefully cultivated exclusivity. The kind of place designed to make certain people feel important and other people feel small. I'd briefed the Secretary of Defense 2 weeks ago, discussed strategic readiness in the South China Sea with allied naval commanders from 9 different nations, made decisions that affected operations across 3 carrier strike groups. And my brother thought I needed his help joining a golf club. The application sat heavy on my lap. 6 pages. 6 pages of questions that felt more invasive than my last security clearance renewal. 4 months ago. Sunday dinner at Dad's house. The house where Mom died 12 years ago. Cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Dad never remarried. He said he'd already had his great love. I understood that better than anyone knew. Jason was there with Vanessa. She wore a Chanel dress to Sunday pot roast, the kind of studied casual that cost $3,000 in 4 hours of preparation. Her engagement ring, upgraded 3 times in 7 years, caught the afternoon light every time she reached for her wine glass. The kitchen smelled like Mom's recipe. Dad still cooked the same meals, followed the same handwritten cards she'd left in the recipe box. Like keeping her routines alive kept some part of her present. Vanessa smiled across the table, the expression never quite reaching her eyes. "Kate, you look tired. Are you sleeping enough?" Not concern. Observation. The way a cat observes a mouse. "Long deployment, Indian Ocean. Still doing that military thing?" The smile widened fractionally. "I admire your dedication. Government jobs are so stable. Not exciting like private sector, but stable. Security matters, especially at your age." At my age, 47, unmarried, childless. In Vanessa's world, that made me a cautionary tale. Jason laughed, the sound filling the small dining room. "Vanessa, be nice. Not everyone can handle the stress of entrepreneurship. Some people prefer the structure of government work." He turned to Dad, who was carefully cutting his roast beef into precise squares, the way he'd done since I was a child. "Speaking of which, Dad, my new project is incredible. Coastal Heights development, $52 million in luxury condos, oceanfront, pre-sales are through the roof." Dad nodded, pride evident in the way his shoulders straightened. "That's wonderful, son. Your mother would be so proud." "I was thinking," Jason continued, reaching for the wine bottle without asking if anyone else wanted more, "Kate might benefit from some networking opportunities. Harbor Point Country Club, great connections. I could sponsor you for a guest membership, sis. Help you meet people. Maybe find—" His eyes flicked to my left hand, where the wedding ring used to be. "You know, someone." The wine turned sour in my mouth, not because of the condescension. I'd learned to tolerate that over 26 years of being the only woman in rooms full of men who assumed my presence was decorative, but because he looked at my bare hand and saw emptiness. I'd taken off the wedding ring 2 years ago. Not because I'd stopped loving Jack, but because I'd learned something painful. People treat widows like we're half-finished sentences, waiting for someone to complete us. I wasn't waiting for completion, I was whole. Scarred, yes. Changed, absolutely. But whole. "That's thoughtful, Jason. Let me think about it." Dad's eyes met mine across the table. In that moment, I thought he understood. Thought he saw past Jason's performance to the dismissal underneath. I was wrong about a lot of things. Present day, the application felt like surrender. Page 1 demanded personal information. Name, address, occupation. I wrote Rear Admiral Catherine Morrison under the name line. Under occupation, I hesitated, then wrote UUS Navy, senior leadership. Marital status had 3 boxes: married, single, divorced. Someone had added widowed in pen, like an afterthought. I checked it, the pen pressing harder than necessary. Page 2 wanted financial details, annual income ranges in neat boxes. I checked the 150 to 200,000 range, though my actual salary hit 174,000. Net worth remained blank. My investment portfolio, carefully built over 2 decades, sitting at $2.4 million, wasn't their business. Jack's life insurance had been substantial. I'd invested every penny, unable to spend money bought with his death. Page 3 asked for references from current members. The blank line stared back at me. I knew people here. Admiral Kendrick had mentioned my membership multiple times. Other flag officers belonged, but I refused to trade on connections Jason didn't think I had. Page 4 required background check authorization. I signed it, the irony sharp. My TS/S CI clearance meant I'd already been investigated more thoroughly than anyone reviewing this application could imagine. Page 5 wanted an essay. Why Harbor Point? The blank lines waited. I wrote one sentence. My brother suggested it would be beneficial. Page 6 listed sponsor information. Jason Morrison, member since 2024. 4 months. 4 months, and already acting like he'd built the place with his own hands. My phone buzzed. Text from Commander Sarah Mitchell, my chief of staff. Ma'am, respectfully, why are you doing this? You outrank everyone at that club except maybe God. I typed back. Because my brother asked. And I'm trying to rebuild family connections after spending 6 years focused only on work. Her response came immediately. Some connections aren't worth rebuilding, but I've got your 6, Admiral. The car felt small suddenly, confined. I could start the engine, drive back to base, forget this entire performative exercise. Jason would be disappointed. Dad would be confused. Vanessa would smile that knowing smile and mention it at the next family dinner. Or I could walk in there and let Jason have his moment of magnanimous charity. Silence is not absence. Silence is choice. I chose to get out of the car. The clubhouse lobby spread before me like a stage set. Marble floors polished to mirrors. Chandeliers that probably cost more than my car. Leather furniture arranged in conversation clusters where people who'd never had to choose between rent and groceries discussed their stock portfolios. Through the windows, the golf course stretched green and perfect, maintained by people whose names the members probably didn't know. Jason stood near the front desk like he'd conquered the space. Head to toe in designer performance wear, the club logo polo cost $450. I knew because I'd seen the receipt on Dad's kitchen counter 2 weeks ago, casually left out like proof of success. Golf shoes, $700 FootJoy limited edition. Watch, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, $95,000. I'd recognized it because he'd accidentally left the purchase documentation on Dad's table during last Sunday's dinner. His smile was practiced, perfect, empty. You're late. I was 4 minutes early. The clock on the wall confirmed it. Traffic. Well, come on. Let me introduce you to Melanie at the desk. She'll get you sorted with a day pass, then we can discuss guest membership rates. He lowered his voice, the tone shifting to something meant to sound confidential, but carrying clearly across the lobby. Fair warning, Kate, it's not cheap. But I can help if you need it. I know government salaries are limited, especially for widows on fixed pensions. I stopped walking. The words landed like small explosions. Jason, I don't need financial help. I know. He waved a hand, dismissive. You're independent. I get it. Very admirable. But there's no shame in accepting family support, Kate. Jack's been gone 6 years now. You don't have to keep proving you can do everything alone. And there it was. The core assumption that had shaped every interaction since Jack's funeral. My brother didn't see a rear admiral. He saw a widow, incomplete, struggling, waiting for rescue. Silence is not absence. Silence is choice. I chose not to correct him, not yet. The front desk gleamed. Melanie, the membership coordinator, smiled with professional warmth that didn't quite reach her eyes. Young, maybe 30, wearing a blazer that probably cost what a junior sailor made in a month. Mr. Morrison, and you must be the guest you mentioned. Welcome to Harbor Point. My sister Catherine, she's interested in guest day passes. Melanie pulled out a laminated pricing sheet, the numbers printed in elegant script. Our guest options include several tiers. Single day pass is $75. Our 10-visit pass runs $650. Monthly guest access is $2,800. And we offer annual guest privileges for $28,000, which includes most member benefits, except voting rights and certain executive facilities. She gestured to a brochure featuring photographs of people who all look the same: white, wealthy, smiling. Our facilities include a championship golf course designed by Robert Trent Jones, Olympic-length swimming pool, 12 tennis courts, private beach access, yacht club with 40-slip marina, full-service spa, and… Jason laughed. Not a chuckle, not polite amusement. A laugh, loud, performative, designed to be heard. The lobby conversation paused. 20 people, maybe more, turned to look. A couple near the windows stopped mid-sentence. The tennis pro walking through with a client slowed. Even the background music seemed to fade. Mel, sweetie, I think the single day pass is more her speed. My sister can't afford membership. That's honestly a little shameful, but let's just give her the basic option. No need to overwhelm her with pricing she can't handle. He turned to me, actually placed his hand on my shoulder like I was a child being guided through a difficult moment. Don't be embarrassed, Kate. Not everyone has entrepreneurial income, government salary, military pension from Jack, maybe some life insurance if you were smart about it. I get it. Times are tight. That's what family is for. I felt rage, not the hot kind that explodes and fades, the cold kind, the kind that calculates trajectories and identifies targets and waits for the perfect firing solution. Jason, no, I insist. Today's guest pass is on me. Call it an early birthday present. Your birthday's not until March, but consider this advanced celebration. He pulled out his wallet, black American Express card, slapped it on the marble counter with a sound that echoed. Melanie looked uncomfortable, her professional smile faltering at the edges. Mr. Morrison, if your sister would prefer to review all the options. Trust me, she needs the help. Catherine's been through a lot, lost her husband 6 years ago, works a basic government job. She's doing her best, but sometimes the best needs support. That's what successful siblings do. We support our family. The words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Every person in that lobby heard them. Heard my brother reduce 26 years of military service to a basic government job. Heard him paint me as a charity case in expensive shoes. Rear Admiral Morrison. The voice cut through the lobby like a blade through silk. Sharp, clear, carrying the weight of 40 years of command. Rear Admiral retired Robert Kendrick, 6'3", silver haircut military short, steel gray eyes that had seen combat in 3 different conflicts. Navy blazer with ribbons that told stories of battles I'd only read about in history books. Distinguished Service Medal, 2 silver stars, bronze star with V device for valor. The kind of chest candy that made other officers stand straighter when he walked past. He'd been my commanding officer when I was a lieutenant aboard USS Boxer. Wrote my first promotion recommendation. Attended Jack's funeral in dress blues, standing in the rain for 2 hours because he said that's what shipmates did. Sent me handwritten letters during my first deployment after becoming a widow, the kind of old-school mentorship that had mostly died with his generation. Admiral Kendrick. I stood straighter. Instinct, respect earned over decades. Your lifetime platinum membership is active and valid. Why are you at the guest services desk? The lobby didn't just go quiet. It went silent. Complete, total, absolute. Someone's phone slipped from their hand, clattered on marble. Nobody moved to pick it up. The tennis match visible through the windows froze mid-serve. Background music, previously unnoticed, suddenly blared too loud. Jason's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound emerged. Melanie's pen stopped mid-note, hovering over her paperwork. I said nothing. Silence is not absence. Silence is choice. Silence is strength dressed in satin. Admiral Kendrick continued, each word measured, deliberate, carrying across the lobby like a commanding officer addressing the crew. Rear Admiral Morrison has been a platinum member since 2019. Lifetime access, complimentary naturally, extended to all flag officers as recognition of service to the nation. I personally approved her membership when she made Rear Admiral at age 42. Youngest female officer to reach that rank in 15 years. He paused. Let the information settle. Let the people staring absorb the reality that the woman my brother had just publicly pitied outranked everyone in the building. The Platinum membership holds a retail value of $85,000. It includes unrestricted access to all club facilities, including the Admiral's Lounge, private dining room, yacht club with priority slip assignment, golf course priority reservations regardless of day or time, and reciprocal privileges at 63 partner clubs globally. Complimentary guest passes for family, waived fees for all events and tournaments. His eyes moved to Jason. The temperature in the lobby dropped 10 degrees. Your brother holds a standard membership. Annual fee $13,500. Approved 4 months ago, March 24th, 2024. Another pause. This one calculated for maximum impact, with Rear Admiral Morrison listed as his primary reference and character endorsement. My blood turned to ice water. Actually felt it happen. The warmth draining from my core replaced by something sharp and cold. I never provided a reference. Admiral Kendrick's expression didn't change. But I saw it. The flash of controlled fury in eyes that had commanded carrier groups during wartime. The tightening at the corners of his mouth. The way his shoulders set, preparing for engagement. I see. Mr. Morrison, falsification of membership documents is fraud. Grounds for immediate membership termination and potential legal action. Criminal charges, depending on the specifics. Jason went white. Not pale. White. Like every drop of blood had evacuated his face, leaving wax behind. There must be some mistake. Kate must have forgotten. She was probably deployed when I asked her. She forgets things sometimes. The stress of her job. It's very demanding, even for administrative work. I don't forget. My voice came out quieter than intended, but carried clearly. I've never forgotten anything in 26 years of military service. I certainly didn't forget signing a reference for you, because I never signed one. Melanie's hand shook slightly as she pulled a file from behind the desk. Manila folder, Jason's name printed on the tab in neat handwriting. Mr. Morrison, I have your membership application here. Page 4 requires member references from current platinum or gold level members. She laid it on the counter. Her fingers left slight moisture marks on the manila. There, in Jason's handwriting. The familiar scrawl I'd seen on birthday cards and Christmas lists, and the occasional letter when we were kids. Reference: Rear Admiral Catherine Morrison, Platinum member. Personal statement: My brother Jason Morrison demonstrates exceptional character, professional integrity, and commitment to excellence befitting Harbor Point membership. His business acumen and community involvement make him an asset to any organization. I enthusiastically endorse his application. Below it, a signature. Catherine Morrison. Not my signature. Close. Very close. But not mine. The C was wrong. I always looped it twice. This one had a single loop. The M tilted left, mine tilted right. The kind of details only someone who signed thousands of documents would notice. Forged. My brother had forged my signature to commit fraud. The lobby remained frozen. 20 people watching this family implosion like it was theater. Some had phones out now. Recording, probably. This would be all over Norfolk by dinner. Mr. Morrison. Admiral Kendrick's voice carried the weight of verdict. My office, now, Admiral Morrison, please join us. He didn't wait for response. Turned and walked toward the administrative wing. Confidence that we would follow. The kind of command presence that made obedience automatic. Jason looked at me, actually turned, his face pale, sweat visible at his temples despite the air conditioning. Waiting for what? Rescue? For me to laugh and say it was all a misunderstanding? I walked after Admiral Kendrick, said nothing. Let Jason scramble to follow. The office overlooked the 18th hole, floor-to-ceiling windows framing perfect green grass and perfectly placed sand traps and perfectly manicured landscaping maintained by people whose names the members never learned. The walls held naval history, photographs with admirals, presidents, foreign dignitaries, model ships in glass cases, shadow boxes displaying medals that represented careers longer than I'd been alive. Admiral Kendrick sat behind an oak desk that had probably seen 40 years of command decisions. The leather chair creaked familiarly as he settled. He didn't invite us to sit. Jason stood in the center of the room, shifting weight from foot to foot. I stood by the window, arms crossed, watching golfers on the course below navigate their perfect problems. Mr. Morrison, forgery is a federal crime. Falsifying membership applications is grounds for immediate termination and potential civil litigation. However, he leaned back, fingers steepled. Out of respect for Admiral Morrison and her service to this nation, I'm offering you an option. Resign your membership voluntarily today, effective immediately, or I refer this matter to our legal counsel and the board of directors for formal investigation, which will become part of public record. But I've already paid this year's dues, Jason's voice pitched higher. $13,500, and I have business meetings scheduled here next week. Clients, investors. The Coastal Heights project depends on the connections I've made. I can't just... You have until 5 p.m. today to decide. That gives you approximately 6 hours. Admiral Morrison, please. Jason turned to me, his face desperate now, the polished veneer cracking. Please, you have to help me. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain. I thought you'd said yes when I asked about the reference. I must have misunderstood. The membership is crucial for my business. Everything I've built depends on access to these networks. If I lose this, I lose everything. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, saw past the designer clothes and expensive watch and practiced smile, saw the desperation, the calculation, the assumption that family meant obligation trumping accountability. 26 years of earning respect. 6 of those years as a widow, rebuilding a life alone. Commanding thousands of sailors, briefing presidents, making decisions that affected international security. And he thought I needed his help to afford a $75 day pass. Jason, I've spent 26 years in military service, 6 of those years learning to stand alone after losing my husband. I've commanded carrier strike groups worth billions of dollars. I've made decisions that affected operations across 3 fleets. I've briefed the Secretary of Defense on strategic readiness. And you thought I worked in administration, filing papers, answering phones. I stepped closer, not threatening, just present, fully present in a way I hadn't been at family dinners, when I'd let his assumptions slide past without correction. You didn't just underestimate me, you never estimated me at all. You never asked what Rear Admiral meant, never asked what commanding a carrier strike group involved, never asked what my life looked like after Jack died. You just assumed I was struggling, assumed I needed rescue. Assumed your success meant you understood mine. The words came quieter than I intended, but carried clearly in the silent office. I'm not saving you from consequences of fraud. Resign the membership. Today. I walked to the door. It closed softly behind me. The kind of soft that somehow sounds louder than slamming. The lobby had emptied slightly. People migrating to areas where they could gossip without being obvious. Melanie sat at the desk, staring at her computer screen without seeing it. She looked up when I approached. Admiral Morrison, I apologize. I should have verified the reference independently. Club policy requires direct contact with references. But Mr. Morrison was so insistent that you'd already approved everything, and he seems very successful. I kept my voice neutral. That's different from being successful, and very different from being honest. My phone buzzed. 22 missed calls from Jason. Text messages flooding in. Vanessa's number appeared multiple times. How dare you embarrass Jason publicly? After everything he's done for you? You're just jealous of his success. You've always been jealous that he built something real while you pushed papers for the government. I turned off notifications. Silence is not absence. Silence is choice. Outside, the Virginia afternoon stretched warm and clear. I drove to Virginia Beach, to the stretch of shoreline where Jack and I used to walk on weekends when we could steal time together. Before deployments and operations and classified missions that took him places I couldn't follow. The Atlantic spread gray-green before me, waves rolling in, constant and unconcerned with human drama. I walked for an hour, let the wind clear my head, let the rhythm of water against sand drown the noise. My phone rang. Commander Sarah Mitchell. Ma'am, I heard. The club incident. Word travels fast in Navy circles. How fast? Fast enough that Admiral Richardson's wife called me asking if you need anything. Apparently, Admiral Kendrick told the entire flag officer spouse's network about what he called the most gratifying membership confrontation in club history. He may have used the word obliterated. I laughed despite everything. Sarah, do you ever feel invisible? Like people see the uniform but not the person? See the widow but not the woman? Silence. Long enough I thought we'd lost connection. Then her voice came back, quieter. Every damn day, ma'am. Single mother, 3 kids, full commander. My ex-husband told the divorce judge I prioritized career over family. Like I didn't spend 10 years prioritizing his career while mine stalled. Like the Navy doesn't count as real work because I don't come home covered in grease or carrying a briefcase. Another pause. You taught me something, Admiral. You taught me that silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. Don't let anyone make you feel small for being exactly who you earned the right to be. We talked for 20 more minutes about everything and nothing, about the peculiar loneliness of command, about being women in spaces designed for men, about the exhaustion of constantly proving competence that should be assumed. When we hung up, the sun sat lower over the Atlantic, golden light turning the waves bronze. My phone showed one more message, this one from Dad. Katie, sweetheart, Jason called very upset. Can we talk? I'm worried about you both. I stared at the words. Worried about you both. Like this was equivalent. Like my brother committing fraud and my refusal to cover for him carried equal weight. I didn't call back, not yet. Needed time to think, to plan, to prepare for conversations that would reshape family dynamics built over 47 years. Admiral Kendrick found me as I was leaving the beach. His car pulled up beside mine in the parking lot. He got out, still wearing the navy blazer despite the heat. Catherine, walk with me. We walked along the seawall, two admirals side by side, watching the Atlantic do what it had done for millions of years before we existed and would do for millions after. I need to tell you something, off the record. Sir, your brother is in severe financial trouble. Coastal Heights development is failing. Permits denied by the city. Environmental violations. Wetland encroachment. Investors threatening lawsuits. The project is dead. He just doesn't know it yet. My stomach dropped. How do you know? My daughter is a forensic accountant. She does work for several club members, handles their business investigations. Your brother's company came up in conversation last week. She mentioned it because she recognized your last name. He stopped walking, faced me directly, his expression serious in a way that made my spine straighten. Catherine, desperate men make dangerous decisions. Your brother has already crossed the line into fraud once. Men who cross that line rarely stop at one crime. They escalate, they get bolder. They tell themselves the ends justify the means. I think you need to watch your father. Watch your assets. Document everything. Every conversation, every request, every financial transaction. I've seen this pattern before. In the Navy, in civilian life. Desperation makes people do things they never imagined themselves capable of. We returned to the cars. He paused before getting into his. One more thing. Your membership. Use it. The Admiral's Lounge has a monthly gathering of flag officers, active and retired. Third Thursday. We discuss strategy, current events, transition planning. You'd be welcome. More than welcome. It's time you stopped hiding your accomplishments to make other people comfortable. That night I couldn't sleep. The conversation with Admiral Kendrick looped in my mind. Desperate men, dangerous decisions already crossed the line once. At 1:47 a.m., I gave up. Made coffee, sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. Typed into Google, Jason Morrison Coastal Heights Development. The results loaded slowly, each one worse than the last. Page 1, Morrison Development Group faces $9.2 million investor lawsuit. Page 2, Coastal Heights luxury project halted, environmental violations cited. Page 3, Jason Morrison, CEO, bankruptcy filing expected within 90 days. Page 4, a legal notice dated 1 week ago. My eyes caught on the header. First Virginia Bank versus Jason Morrison and Henry Morrison. Default proceedings. Property, 847 Oakwood Drive, Norfolk, Virginia. 847 Oakwood Drive. Dad's house. The house my parents bought in 1979 for $38,000. Saved for 8 years to afford the down payment. The house where Mom planted roses along the fence line that still bloom every spring in colors she chose. The house where Jack proposed to me on the front porch on an October evening with the sunset turning everything gold. The house where Dad still lives, surrounded by 45 years of memories and photographs and furniture that Mom picked out piece by piece. Jason had mortgaged it. I clicked through to the full filing. Legal language filled the screen. Default notice. Failure to make payments. Foreclosure proceedings initiated. Amount owed. $1.5 million. $1.5 million against a house worth maybe $800,000 in the current market. My hands shook. Actually shook. The kind of physiological response I'd trained myself to suppress during combat operations, during crisis management, during the moments when leaders can't afford to show fear. I scrolled further, found the mortgage origination documents, dated March 10th, 2024. 8 months ago. 3 payments made, then nothing for 5 months. Dad's signature appeared on every page. Neat, precise, exactly the way he'd signed documents my entire life. Too exact. I pulled up my phone, found a photo from Christmas 2 years ago. Dad signing the guest book at a restaurant. Zoomed in. His signature had changed. Arthritis made his handwriting shakier. The H in Henry tilted more. The M in Morrison compressed. The signatures on the mortgage documents showed none of that deterioration. They matched his signature from 10 years ago. Before the arthritis. Before age changed the mechanics of holding a pen. Forged. Jason had forged Dad's signature to steal his house. I sat at that table until dawn, watching Norfolk wake up through my kitchen window, watching the sky lighten from black to gray to pale blue, watching ships move in and out of the harbor, their running lights still visible in the pre-dawn dimness. Didn't cry, couldn't cry, just sat. My brother wasn't just a fool. He was a criminal, and he'd weaponized our father's trust to commit fraud. At 6 a.m., I made the call I should have made years ago. The call I'd avoided making because I wanted to preserve some version of family that probably never existed the way I'd imagined. "Dad, we need to talk now." Dad answered on the first ring. His voice carried the rough edge of someone who hadn't slept. "Katie, what's wrong? It's 6 in the morning. I need you to tell me about the mortgage on your house." The silence stretched long enough for me to hear my own pulse in my ears. "What mortgage? Sweetheart, the house has been paid off since 2003. Your mother and I burned those papers. We celebrated with champagne on the back porch." The confirmation hit like shrapnel, precise, devastating. "Dad, get dressed. I'm coming over. Don't call Jason. Don't call anyone. Just wait for me." 30 minutes later, I stood in the kitchen that still smelled faintly of Mom's Sunday dinners. Dad sat at the same table where we'd eaten pot roast 4 months ago, where Jason had pitched his Harbor Point suggestion with such confident generosity. The legal documents spread between us like evidence at a court-martial. Dad's hands trembled as he read. His fingers traced the signature at the bottom of page 3. "That's not my handwriting. I mean, it looks like my handwriting from years ago. But I can't write like that anymore. The arthritis. My doctor has me doing exercises just to hold a pen properly." I pulled out my phone, showed him the photograph from Christmas. His signature on the restaurant guest book, shaky and compressed. The signatures on these mortgage documents don't show any of that deterioration. They match your handwriting from before Mom died, before your hand started hurting. "Jason forged these?" The question came out small, broken. A father confronting the possibility that his son had weaponized trust. "I think so, but we need to be certain. I'm calling my attorney this morning. We'll need forensic document analysis, handwriting experts, the full investigation." Dad stood, walked to the window overlooking the backyard. The roses Mom planted 30 years ago climbed the fence line, early November blooms still clinging despite the cold. She'd chosen pink and yellow, colors that reminded her of sunrise. This house is all I have left of her. We picked out every piece of furniture together. She painted the bedroom 3 times before she found the right shade of blue. She planted those roses the summer you graduated from the Naval Academy. She said they'd still be blooming when she was gone. And she was right. His voice cracked on the last word. "When your mother was dying, she made me promise something. She said, 'Henry, don't let anyone take this house from you. It holds every good memory we built together.' I promised her. And now Jason has used my name to steal it." I moved to stand beside him, put my hand on his shoulder, felt how thin he'd become, how age had whittled him down in ways I'd been too busy to notice. "We're going to fight this. I have resources, connections. I know military lawyers who specialize in fraud. We're going to save this house." "What about Jason?" The question hung heavy. "What about him? He's still my son, your brother. Family doesn't commit fraud against family. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't steal homes." Dad turned from the window. His eyes, the same gray as mine, held something that looked like grief. "When did you get so hard?" The words stung more than they should have. "I'm not hard. I'm clear. There's a difference. Jason made choices, criminal choices. And I'm not going to protect him from consequences just because we share DNA." Monday morning, I sat in the office of Patricia Morrison, attorney recommended by Admiral Kendrick. No relation, though she joked that Morrison was a Navy name if there ever was one. 52 years old, Georgetown law, former JAG officer herself, now specializing in elder fraud and military family legal issues. Her office overlooked the James River, Photographs on the walls showed her shaking hands with senators, judges, other attorneys, degrees from Georgetown and George Washington University, awards from veterans organizations. She reviewed the documents I'd brought with methodical precision, made notes on a yellow legal pad in handwriting so neat it looked printed. This is textbook elder fraud. Forged signatures, unauthorized use of property as collateral, fraudulent loan obtained through misrepresentation. Your brother is looking at federal charges, 5 to 10 years if convicted. What about my father's house? If we prove the mortgage was obtained through fraud, it's void. The loan never legally existed. Your father keeps the house free and clear, but we need ironclad evidence. She outlined the strategy with the clarity of someone who'd fought these battles before. First, we file a criminal complaint with the Norfolk Police Department. Elder fraud, forgery, identity theft. That starts the official investigation. Second, we retain a forensic document examiner, someone who can testify in court that the signatures are forged. Third, we file an emergency motion to halt foreclosure proceedings. Fourth, we go after the bank. They should have verified the signature, confirmed the borrower's intent. Their failure to do due diligence makes them partially liable. Timeline? Fast! The foreclosure is scheduled for 30 days from now. We need to move immediately. I spent the next 72 hours doing what I do best: planning, organizing, executing with precision. Monday afternoon, criminal complaint filed. The detective assigned to the case, Maria Santos, had 15 years investigating financial crimes. She listened to my explanation with the same focused attention I'd seen in good officers, took notes, asked sharp questions, requested all documentation. Tuesday morning, forensic document examiner hired. Dr. Raymond Chen, professor at University of Virginia, testified in over 300 cases. His curriculum vitae ran 12 pages. His retainer cost $5,000, worth every penny. Tuesday afternoon, emergency motion filed in circuit court. Judge Patricia Yee assigned to the case. Former prosecutor, reputation for being tough on fraud. Our hearing scheduled for Friday. Wednesday, I met with Commander Sarah Mitchell aboard USS George Washington. My office, windows overlooking Norfolk Naval Base, the largest in the world, 17 miles of waterfront, 75 ships, 14 piers, the kind of infrastructure that reminded you the Navy wasn't just a job, it was a civilization. Sarah sat across from my desk, coffee in hand, 3 kids' school photos on the corner of my workspace that she'd given me last year. Ma'am, you look like you haven't slept in 3 days. I haven't, not more than 4 hours at a stretch. The family situation? My brother stole my father's house, used forged documents to obtain a $1.5 million mortgage. The bank is foreclosing in 30 days. Sarah's expression shifted from concern to cold fury. She had 3 kids, single mother after a divorce that had cost her 2 years of legal fees and most of her savings. She understood family betrayal on a cellular level. What do you need from me? Cover. I have the court hearing Friday, probably depositions next week. If this goes to trial, I'll need time away from the ship. You've got it. I'll handle the strike group. We're between deployments anyway. Take whatever time you need to bury that bastard. The language surprised me. Sarah rarely swore. That's not very charitable. Ma'am, with respect, charity is for people who deserve it. Your brother forged an elderly man's signature to steal his home. That's not family, that's predatory. Thursday morning, Dad called. His voice carried a tremor I'd never heard before. Katie, I'm scared. What if we lose? What if the house gets taken anyway? Where would I go? I can't afford rent on my pension. All my friends are in this neighborhood. The church is 3 blocks away. Your mother is buried 10 minutes from here. Dad, we're not going to lose, I promise you. You can't promise that, you're not God. No, but I'm a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy with access to some of the best legal minds in the country and enough resources to fight this properly. Trust me. The silence that followed felt heavy with all the things we'd never said to each other. All the assumptions, all the missed conversations. I do trust you, Katie. I always have. I just wish I'd shown it better. Thursday evening, Admiral Kendrick called. Catherine, I heard about the court hearing tomorrow. How are you holding up? Honestly, sir? I've commanded ships through combat operations that felt less stressful than this. He laughed, the sound rough but warm. Family is always harder than combat. In combat, you know who the enemy is. Family blurs those lines. Any advice? Same advice I gave you when you made captain. Stay focused on the objective. Don't get distracted by emotion. Document everything. and remember that doing the right thing rarely feels good in the moment. Friday arrived with cold rain that turned Norfolk gray and hostile. The courthouse steps were slick. I wore my service dress blues, full ribbons, rank insignia polished. Psychological warfare through appearance. Dad met me in the lobby, dressed in his only suit, the one he'd worn to Mom's funeral. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by stress and fear and the betrayal of someone he'd raised. Patricia Morrison arrived with her paralegal, both carrying briefcases that looked heavy with preparation. We convened in a conference room to review strategy before the hearing. The bank will argue they followed standard procedures. Our position is that standard procedures failed to catch obvious fraud. Judge Yee is sharp. She'll see through their bureaucracy defense. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, the seal of Virginia mounted behind the judge's bench. Maybe 15 people in the gallery, most of them attorneys waiting for other cases. Jason sat 3 rows back with his attorney, public defender, young, maybe 30, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. Jason had burned through his money, couldn't afford private counsel anymore. He looked terrible. Weight loss, dark circles. The expensive watch was gone. So were the designer clothes, just khakis and a button-down that needed ironing. Our eyes met briefly. I saw something that might have been regret, or might have been resentment. Hard to tell with Jason. Judge Yee entered. Everyone stood. She was 60-something, Asian American, wearing robes that somehow made her look 7 feet tall. She settled behind the bench, reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing documents with the focus of someone who'd spent 40 years evaluating evidence. This is case number 2024-9732. Morrison versus Morrison and First Virginia Bank, emergency motion to halt foreclosure proceedings. Counsel, state your appearances. Patricia stood. Patricia Morrison for petitioner, Henry Morrison. The bank's attorney stood. Marcus Chen for respondent, First Virginia Bank. Jason's attorney stood. David Williams for respondent, Jason Morrison. Judge Yee looked up over her glasses. I've reviewed the emergency motion and supporting documents. This appears to be a case of alleged elder fraud and forgery. Ms. Morrison, make your case. Make your... Patricia presented with the precision of a prosecutor building a capital case, showed the mortgage documents, showed the forensic analysis proving the signatures were forged, showed Dad's medical records documenting arthritis that made his current handwriting distinctly different from the forged signatures. Your Honor, Mr. Henry Morrison did not sign these documents. He did not authorize this loan. He did not give his son permission to use his home as collateral. This is textbook elder fraud, and the mortgage should be declared void. The bank's attorney argued procedure, verification processes, standard industry practices. None of it sounded convincing under Judge Yee's skeptical gaze. Jason's attorney tried a different approach. Your Honor, my client maintains this was a misunderstanding. He believed his father had consented to the loan. He intended to make the payments. The business failure was unexpected. This is a civil matter, not criminal fraud. Judge Yee removed her glasses, looked at Jason directly. Mr. Morrison, did you forge your father's signature on these mortgage documents? Jason stood. His hands shook slightly. I signed the documents, yes, but I thought my father had agreed. I thought he understood the business needed capital and... Did you forge his signature? Yes or no? The courtroom held its breath. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet, waiting. Yes. The word fell like a hammer. Judge Yee's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. The weight of verdict. The emergency motion to halt foreclosure is granted. The mortgage on property located at 847 Oakwood Drive is hereby declared void pending full investigation of fraud allegations. The property remains with Mr. Henry Morrison, free and clear. She looked at the bank's attorney. Mr. Chen, I'm disturbed by your client's failure to verify this loan properly. An elderly man on a fixed pension suddenly seeking $1.5 million should have triggered additional scrutiny. I'm referring this matter to the Banking Commission for review of First Virginia Bank's lending practices. Then to Jason's attorney. Mr. Williams, I'm referring your client to the Commonwealth's attorney for criminal prosecution. Bail is set at $250,000 pending arraignment. The gavel came down. Final. Absolute. Dad collapsed beside me, not physically, emotionally. Shoulders shaking with relief that looked painful. Jason's face went pale. His attorney was already talking fast, discussing bail bondsmen and payment plans and legal options. But Jason wasn't listening. He stared at Dad, then at me. His mouth open like he wanted to say something. No words came. I helped Dad out of the courtroom. Patricia handled the procedural follow-up. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving Norfolk washed clean and cold. The house is safe? The house is safe. Dad sat on a bench near the courthouse steps, put his head in his hands, started crying. Decades of stress releasing all at once. I sat beside him, put my arm around shoulders that felt too fragile. Let him cry without trying to fix it or stop it or make it easier. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. I keep thinking about when he was little, 7 years old, maybe 8. He fell off his bike and scraped his knee badly. Blood everywhere. He was so brave about it. Didn't cry, just limped home and let your mother clean the wound. I remember thinking he was going to grow up strong. He grew up weak. There's a difference between not crying and having actual courage. How did I miss it? How did I not see what he was becoming? Because you loved him, love makes blind spots. We sat there for 20 minutes, watching people come and go from the courthouse, lawyers in expensive suits, families in varying states of distress, the machinery of justice grinding forward regardless of human pain. My phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. You destroyed him. I hope you're proud. He's broken because of you. Family is supposed to protect each other. You're supposed to help, but you're too cold to understand that. You've always been cold. I deleted it without responding. Silence is not weakness. Silence is refusing to engage with people who weaponize emotion. That weekend, I should have rested. Instead, I prepared for the Navy Ball, annual Pacific Fleet Charity Gala, my 3rd year as organizing committee chair. This year it was scheduled for Friday, 2 weeks away, at Harbor Point Country Club. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Admiral Kendrick had suggested the venue. Made a point of saying my membership privileges should be used visibly. Show the club what flag officers actually did with their lives beyond golf. Expected attendance, 400 guests, 15 current admirals, Secretary of the Navy confirmed, major defense contractors, media, congressional staffers. Budget goal, $3 million for Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. I spent Monday and Tuesday coordinating with the event planner, reviewing seating charts, confirming speaker schedules, managing RSVPs. The kind of logistical operation that made commanding a carrier strike group seem simple by comparison. Wednesday afternoon, I met Mrs. Elizabeth Hartford for the first time. She found me at the club, overseeing setup in the main ballroom. 78 years old, white hair styled in perfect waves, wearing pearls that probably cost more than my car, and a Chanel suit that made Vanessa's Sunday dinner outfit look cheap. Admiral Morrison, I've been hoping to meet you. Her voice carried this cultured accent of old Virginia money, the kind of family that had owned plantations before the Civil War, and somehow managed to stay wealthy through Reconstruction, Depression, war, and social change. Mrs. Hartford, I've heard wonderful things about you. All lies, I'm sure. But thank you for the kindness. We walked through the ballroom together. She pointed out which tables had best sight lines, which areas had acoustic dead zones, where the lighting needed adjustment. 60 years of club membership had given her institutional knowledge that proved invaluable. My late husband was Navy. Captain William Hartford served under Admiral Kendrick in the Gulf War. Died of a heart attack 20 years ago this December. I still miss him every single day. I understand that feeling. She looked at me directly. Her eyes, pale blue, held something that looked like recognition. Yes, I suspect you do. 6 years widowed at your age. I was 48 when Will died. Young enough to be told I'd marry again, old enough to know I wouldn't. We sat in the empty ballroom, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, dust motes dancing in the light. I heard about your brother, the forged reference, the mortgage fraud, the courthouse scene last Friday. Of course she knew. Mrs. Hartford probably knew everything that happened in Norfolk before it reached the newspapers. I want you to know something, dear. This club has seen many members come and go over the years. Some leave with honor, others are quietly encouraged to disappear. Your brother will be in the latter category. He already resigned his membership. Oh, I'm not talking about the club membership. I'm talking about polite society, the business community, the social circles he was trying so desperately to penetrate. Word travels. Men who commit fraud against their own families find themselves frozen out. Doors close. Invitations stop. Suddenly, nobody returns their calls. She smiled, the expression sharp enough to cut. Sometimes the best revenge is simply watching someone experience the natural consequences of their choices. The following week blurred into preparation. Final menu tastings, sound system checks, coordinating with the Admiral's band, 17-piece ensemble that had played presidential inaugurations, confirming speeches, managing RSVPs that kept changing as schedules shifted. Commander Mitchell helped coordinate the military attendees, making sure uniforms were correct. Seating followed protocol. Flag officers weren't seated near anyone they'd publicly disagreed with during recent policy debates. Ma'am, this is more complicated than deployment planning. Deployment planning is easier. In combat, you can just shoot the problems. She laughed. We were in my office aboard ship, reviewing the final seating chart that looked like a chessboard designed by a sadistic grandmaster. How's your father doing? Better. The criminal charges against Jason move forward next month. Dad struggles with it, wants to forgive, but doesn't know how to forgive someone who hasn't actually apologized. Has Jason apologized? No, he sent a text saying he was sorry I misunderstood his intentions. That's not an apology. That's blame shifting. Your brother is a piece of work. That's charitable. Friday arrived cold and clear. November in Virginia, temperature dropping to 45 degrees by evening. I wore my service dress blues, the formal version with medals I rarely displayed outside official ceremonies. Navy Cross I'd earned during a hostile action off the coast of Somalia 15 years ago. 2 Distinguished Service Medals, 3 Meritorious Service Medals. Campaign ribbons that told the story of 26 years across 3 different conflicts. The ballroom looked perfect. Round tables with navy blue linens, centerpieces featuring white roses and miniature anchors. Lighting that turned the space golden and warm. Live orchestra already playing as guests arrived. I stood near the entrance, greeting admirals and captains and congressional staffers, shaking hands, making small talk. The uniform made it easier. People saw the stars and ribbons before they saw the woman. Sometimes that was a curse. Tonight it was armor. Admiral Kendrick arrived early, escorting Mrs. Hartford, who wore sapphires that matched her dress and probably cost more than a frigate. Catherine, everything looks magnificent. Your mother would be proud. The comment from Mrs. Hartford hit unexpectedly hard. She'd never met my mother, but somehow knew exactly what to say. By 7:30, the ballroom was full. 400 people in formal wear. Flag officers in dress uniforms, civilians in tuxedos and gowns, the kind of event where power and money mingled with service and sacrifice. Dinner was flawless. Speeches were mercifully brief. The fundraising exceeded goals, hitting $3.2 million by dessert. Secretary of the Navy gave remarks about the importance of supporting military families, about the sacrifices sailors made, about the community that held the Navy together. I was scheduled to speak at 9:15. Had prepared remarks about the Relief Society, about sailors I'd served with, about the families who held everything together while their loved ones deployed. At 9:10, commotion at the ballroom entrance. Jason, drunk, loud, trying to push past the security we'd hired for the event. I need to talk to my sister. Kate, you can't do this to me. 400 heads turned. The orchestra stopped mid-phrase. Secretary of the Navy paused mid-conversation with the senator. Vanessa was with him, trying to pull him back, her face red with embarrassment or anger or both. Jason, stop it. Let's just go, please. But Jason shoved past security, stumbled into the ballroom. His suit was rumpled, tie missing, hair messy, the polish completely gone. Maggie, please. They're taking everything. The business is bankrupt. The house is in foreclosure. Vanessa is leaving me. I have nothing. You have to help me. You're my sister. The ballroom remained frozen. 400 witnesses to family implosion broadcast in real time. I stood from the head table, walked toward the entrance. Every admiral, every captain, every commander watching. Jason, you need to leave now. I'm your brother, blood, family. That's supposed to mean something. His voice pitched higher, desperate. You forged our father's signature. You stole his home. You used my name to commit fraud. You're not my brother. You're a criminal who happens to share my DNA. The words came out quiet, but carried across the silent ballroom. Clear, unapologetic, the kind of statement that leaves no room for misinterpretation. Security moved in. 2 large men in suits who'd been hired specifically because they could handle situations like this without creating more drama. Jason tried to resist. Actually pushed one of them. Bad decision. They each took an arm, lifted him slightly off the ground, carried him toward the exit. You'll regret this! I'll make you pay! You can't just abandon family! The threats echoed as they removed him from the building. Vanessa followed, her heels clicking on marble, her face a mask of humiliation. The ballroom remained silent for 3 full seconds. Then Admiral Richardson started clapping, Slow, deliberate. Within seconds, the entire room joined, 400 people applauding. Not for the drama, for the dignity, for handling an impossible situation with composure. I returned to the microphone, took a breath, delivered my remarks like nothing had happened. Talked about sailors who sent money home to struggling families, about widows who raised children alone while grieving spouses, about the community that showed up when everything fell apart. When I finished, the applause was genuine, warm, the kind of recognition that matters. After the event, after the last guest departed, after the cleanup crew began breaking down tables, Admiral Kendrick found me on the terrace. The November night had dropped to near freezing, my breath visible in the air. "You handled that with remarkable composure." I wanted to punch him. That would have been memorable, also possibly career-ending. I laughed despite everything. "Robert, I have news. Classified, so this conversation never happened." "Ma'am?" "The promotion board met last week. Vice Admiral slots, 3 stars. My heart stopped. You're on the list. Strong support across the board. Your record speaks for itself. But optics matter. A flag officer with family embroiled in criminal proceedings. Some on the board worry about the appearance. So my brother's crimes could cost me the promotion I've spent 26 years earning. Or they could demonstrate your character. How you handle this situation matters. You've already shown you value integrity over family loyalty. That means something to the people making decisions." We stood in silence, watching Norfolk's lights across the water. "One more thing. Use this club. Use your membership. Visibility matters. Let people see you succeeding despite family drama. Let them see flag officers treating you as a peer. Politics shouldn't matter, but they do." That night I drove home exhausted, emotionally drained in ways combat had never managed. Dad had texted earlier, saying he'd heard about the incident at the ball, asking if I was okay. I'd replied fine. Jason made his choices, I made mine. At 1:15 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Admiral Morrison? This is Detective Maria Santos, Norfolk Police Department. I've been investigating your brother's fraud case. Something came up tonight I think you should know about." My stomach dropped. Had Jason done something worse? Hurt himself? Hurt someone else? "We arrested Jason's business partner tonight. Man named Daniel Cross. Financial fraud related to the Coastal Heights project. During questioning, he said something interesting. He mentioned you two have history. Said you ruined his life 9 years ago." Daniel Cross. The name triggered memory like a depth charge. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Cross, USS Boxer, 2015. I'd been captain. He'd been a senior enlisted sailor accused of sexual harassment. 3 female sailors filed complaints. The investigation revealed a pattern of predatory behavior spanning years. I'd convened the court-martial. He was found guilty. I signed the order for dishonorable discharge. During sentencing, he'd screamed at me across the courtroom. The exact words burned into memory. "You'll regret this. I'll destroy everything you care about. I'll make you pay for ruining my life." Shore Patrol had dragged him out. I'd never seen him again. Until now. "Admiral Morrison, are you still there?" "Yes, I remember Cross. I court-martialed him in 2015 for sexual harassment. Dishonorable discharge. Well, he's been your brother's business partner for the last 3 years. He's the one who suggested using your father's house as collateral. He's the one who handled the mortgage documents. And according to bank records, he's the one who forged your father's signature. The pieces fell together like ordnance finding its target. This wasn't just Jason's fraud. This was revenge. Calculated. Patient. 9 years in the making. Cross had found my brother. Desperate. Arrogant. Easy to manipulate. And used him like a weapon to destroy my family. Detective Santos, I need to see Cross's financial records. Everything related to the Coastal Heights project. Everything related to my brother. That's evidence in an active investigation. I can't just... This is bigger than fraud. This is a coordinated attack on a flag officer. That makes it a matter of national security interest. I have contacts at NCIS who can make the appropriate requests. Silence while she considered. "I'll see what I can do. But Admiral, be careful. Cross is dangerous. He spent 9 years planning this. Men like that don't stop with one attack." I hung up. Sat in my dark apartment. The Norfolk skyline visible through my windows. Ships moving in the harbor. Their lights marking safe passage through dangerous waters. For 9 years, I'd thought I'd forgotten Daniel Cross. Thought he was a cautionary tale I'd mentioned to junior officers about integrity and consequences. I'd never imagined he'd been planning, waiting, watching. And when he found my brother, desperate and greedy and willing to cut corners, he'd found the perfect weapon. This wasn't about money. This was about destroying me, destroying my family, making me pay for doing my job 9 years ago. Jason was a fool, but he'd also been a tool, manipulated by someone who understood exactly how to weaponize family dysfunction. The question now was simple. How far did Cross's revenge plan extend? And what else had he set in motion that I hadn't discovered yet? I made coffee, pulled out my laptop, started researching. By dawn, I had a list of questions that needed answers. By Monday, I'd have a team working on them. Because if Daniel Cross thought 9 years was enough time for me to forget how to fight, he'd badly miscalculated. I'd spent 26 years learning to win wars. This one just happened to be personal. Monday morning, I assembled a team the way I'd assemble a strike force. Precise, targeted, overwhelming. Commander Sarah Mitchell coordinated with NMENCIS. Detective Santos provided access to evidence files. Patricia Morrison brought in 2 additional attorneys, both former prosecutors who specialized in conspiracy cases. Dr. Raymond Chen, the forensic document examiner, expanded his analysis to include every signature Cross had ever forged. By Wednesday, we had a timeline that stretched back 11 years. Cross had been dishonorably discharged in June 2015, spent 6 months in federal prison for the embezzlement that precipitated his court-martial, released in January 2016, disappeared for 18 months, then resurfaced in Norfolk under a slightly modified name. Daniel J. Cross became DJ Crossman, started a business consulting firm, legitimate on the surface, just legitimate enough to avoid scrutiny. The financial records told the story his carefully constructed identity tried to hide. 2019, Cross attended a real estate development conference in Virginia Beach. Jason was there, networking, trying to expand his struggling company. They met, exchanged business cards, started what Jason thought was a professional relationship. What Cross saw was opportunity, a man desperate for success, arrogant enough to cut corners, connected to me through family. Perfect. He spent 3 years building trust, became Jason's business partner, suggested projects, introduced investors, made himself indispensable, all while gathering information about my family, about Dad's house, about my career, about every vulnerability he could exploit. The Coastal Heights project was designed to fail from the beginning. Cross had secretly paid environmental groups to file complaints, bribed a city inspector to find violations, contacted investors with false information to make them pull funding. Every disaster was orchestrated, and when Jason became desperate enough, Cross suggested the solution. Use your father's house as collateral. I know a mortgage broker who can expedite the process. Don't worry about the details. Jason, fool that he was, agreed. Cross forged Dad's signature. Cross structured the loan to be impossible to repay. Cross made sure the foreclosure would proceed quickly once payments stopped. Revenge wrapped in business casual. Thursday, I met with the Commonwealth's attorney, Jennifer Walsh, 45, former defense attorney turned prosecutor, reputation for being ruthless with white-collar criminals. Her office was small, cluttered with case files stacked on every surface. Coffee cups from 3 different days lined her desk. She looked exhausted and energized simultaneously. Admiral Morrison, I have reviewed the evidence your team compiled. This is one of the most elaborate revenge schemes I've seen in 20 years practicing law. What are we looking at for charges? For Cross, elder fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, criminal impersonation, and potentially targeting a military officer, which carries federal implications. He's looking at 20 years minimum. And my brother? Her expression softened slightly. Honestly, Jason was a tool, manipulated, yes, but also willing. He knew the signatures were forged. He signed the documents. He took the money. That's still fraud, even if Cross orchestrated everything. So he'll be charged? Yes, but his sentence will be significantly lighter than Cross's. Maybe 3 to 5 years if he cooperates fully. Possibly less with good behavior. I nodded, felt nothing. The brother I'd grown up with, the one who taught me to ride a bike and walk me to my first day of school, had become someone I didn't recognize. Whatever grief I felt for that loss had been processed somewhere between the courthouse and the Navy ball. The trial was scheduled for January, 2 months away. Christmas would happen in between, awkward and strained. Dad suggested we cancel family dinner this year. I agreed. But first there was Thanksgiving. Dad insisted. Despite everything, despite Jason's arrest, despite Cross's pending trial, despite the family implosion that had been broadcast across Norfolk society. We need to remember what we're grateful for. Your mother would have insisted. So I found myself in Dad's kitchen the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, helping prepare a meal for 3 people instead of the 5 we used to be before Mom died, before Jason's betrayal, before everything broke. Dad moved slower now. The stress had aged him. His hands shook more when he chopped vegetables. But he insisted on cooking Mom's recipes, following her handwritten cards with the kind of devotion that made my chest ache. Your mother made this stuffing every year for 40 years, never varied the recipe once, said consistency was its own kind of love. I helped him measure sage and thyme and the stale bread he'd been drying for days. The kitchen smelled like memory, like November afternoons when life was simpler and family meant safety instead of betrayal. Dad, we need to talk about Jason. His hand stilled over the mixing bowl. The trial is in January. They're offering him a plea deal. 3 years if he testifies against Cross. Patricia thinks he should take it. 3 years in federal prison. It's better than what he could get at trial. Cross's attorney will try to put everything on Jason, paint him as the mastermind. Jason's best option is cooperation. Dad sat down heavily. Do you think he'll take the deal? I don't know. Jason's not good at accepting consequences. He's better at blaming others for his choices. When did my children become strangers to me? The question hurt more than it should have. I'm not a stranger, Dad. I'm just not the person you assumed I was. Neither is Jason. We're both exactly who we've always been, you just see us clearly now. Thanksgiving dinner was quiet. Turkey that Dad had brined for 2 days. Stuffing made from Mom's recipe. Cranberry sauce she used to make from scratch, though Dad bought the canned version because he'd never learned her technique. Pumpkin pie from the bakery because neither of us could bake. We ate in the dining room, the same table where we'd had Sunday dinners, where Jason had suggested Harbor Point, where I'd been dismissed and underestimated and allowed it because keeping peace seemed easier than demanding respect. I'm grateful for you. Dad's voice broke the silence. For your strength, for your integrity, for not letting me lose this house. I know I haven't always shown it, but I'm proud of you, Katie. Your mother would be so proud. The words landed like artillery, precise, devastating. I spent 26 years in the Navy, 6 years as a widow, and I never told you about any of it because I thought you weren't interested. But the truth is I was afraid. Afraid that my success would make you uncomfortable. Afraid that taking up space would make me difficult. So I made myself small. I set down my fork, looked at him directly. I'm done with that. I'm done shrinking. I'm done letting people underestimate me because it makes them comfortable. I'm a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy. I command 7,000 sailors. I brief presidents. And if that makes people uncomfortable, that's their problem, not mine. Dad reached across the table, took my hand. His grip was weak, arthritis making the gesture painful, but he held on. Promise me something. Promise me you'll never make yourself small again. Your mother spent her whole life making herself smaller so I could feel bigger. I didn't realize it until after she died. Don't make her a mistake. Don't make mine. December arrived with cold that turned Norfolk bitter and hostile. The harbor froze at the edges. Ships moved carefully through ice that shouldn't exist this far south but did anyway, because climate had its own agenda. I spent the first week preparing for the Admiral's Lounge gathering, the monthly meeting Admiral Kendrick had mentioned. 3rd Thursday of every month, flag officers discussing strategy and current events and the peculiar challenges of command. 12 admirals attended, 10 men, 2 women. Me and Vice Admiral Rebecca Morrison, no relation, 3-star who commanded Naval Forces Central Command. She'd been the first woman to reach Vice Admiral in surface warfare. Paved roads I now walked. We gathered in the lounge I'd never used, despite 5 years of platinum membership. Leather chairs arranged around a fireplace. Windows overlooking the golf course. The kind of old money elegance that usually made me uncomfortable, but today felt earned. Admiral Kendrick made introductions. Every man in that room stood when I entered. Respect for rank, yes, but also something else. Acknowledgement. Gentlemen, Admiral Morrison, Catherine has been a platinum member since 2019 but hasn't joined our gatherings. I'm pleased she's finally here. We discussed the Pacific Fleet, readiness issues, budget constraints, congressional oversight, the kind of strategic conversation that reminded me why I'd spent 26 years in uniform. Vice Admiral Morrison pulled me aside during the break. I heard about your brother, the fraud case. Must be hell. It's been educational. She laughed, the sound sharp. I went through something similar 10 years ago. Sister embezzled from our mother, used my name as reference for credit cards, destroyed her credit, nearly destroyed mine. Family betrayal hits different than anything else. How did you handle it? Same way you're handling it. Prosecuted her, testified at trial, made sure she faced consequences. Family doesn't get special exemptions from integrity. She sipped her scotch, looked out at the frozen golf course. They'll ask you about it during the promotion board process. For Vice Admiral, they'll want to know if family drama will distract from your duties. And what should I say? The truth, that you value duty over comfort, that you understand the difference between loyalty and complicity, that you won't compromise integrity for anyone, including family. The promotion board met 2 weeks before Christmas. I wasn't present, obviously. Candidates never are. But Admiral Kendrick called me afterward. Catherine, the board approved your promotion, pending final authorization from the Secretary of Defense and the President. You'll pin on your 3rd star in April. Vice Admiral, 3 stars. Youngest woman to reach that rank in naval history. 26 years of work validated in a single decision. I should have felt elated. Instead, I felt tired. Thank you, sir. You don't sound excited. I am. I'm just processing. This year has been a lot. The timing is interesting. Your promotion approved the same week your brother's trial is scheduled. Irony has a sense of humor. Or justice does. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my apartment, watching ships move through Norfolk Harbor, thinking about Jack and Mom and all the people who'd shaped my life and weren't here to see this moment. Dad called Christmas evening. Jason's taking the plea deal. 3 years. He'll testify against Cross in exchange for reduced sentencing. That's smart. He wants to see you before sentencing. He says he needs to apologize. He can apologize in a letter. Katie? Dad, I'm not ready. Maybe someday, but not now. He needs to serve his time and figure out who he wants to be when he gets out. I need to focus on my career and my life and not let his choices define my trajectory. Silence. Then, when did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just noticing now. The trial began January 7th. Federal courthouse. Same building where we'd fought the foreclosure. Different floor. Larger courtroom. More press. This was a bigger case. Conspiracy. Fraud. Revenge plot against a military officer. The kind of story that made headlines. Jason testified first. Looked smaller in prison orange, weight loss, haunted eyes. Whatever polish he'd cultivated was gone, stripped away by consequences. The prosecutor, Jennifer Walsh, questioned him methodically. Mr. Morrison, when did you meet Daniel Cross? October 2019, Real Estate Development Conference in Virginia Beach. And he approached you? Yes. Said he was interested in partnering on coastal development projects. Did he ask about your family? Eventually. After we'd worked together for about 6 months. Asked about my sister. I told him she was in the Navy. Administrative work, I thought. What was his reaction? He seemed very interested. Asked a lot of questions. What rank, where stationed, how long she'd served. I thought he was just making conversation. When did he suggest using your father's house as collateral? March 2024. The Coastal Heights project was struggling. Investors were pulling out. I was desperate. He said he knew a way to get quick capital. Did you know the signatures on the mortgage documents were forged? Jason's hands shook. He looked at the defense table where Cross sat, expression blank, watching like this was theater. I knew. Cross forged them. I saw him do it. But he said it was just a formality, that Dad would have agreed anyway, that we'd pay it back before he ever knew. I convinced myself it was okay. Why did you convince yourself? Because I was desperate. Because I'd failed at everything else, because I needed to succeed at something. Cross's attorney, Marcus Webb, expensive suit and Georgetown pedigree, cross-examined with the precision of someone billing $800 per hour. Mr. Morrison, isn't it true that you initiated contact with my client about using your father's property? No, Cross suggested it. But you agreed immediately. I was desperate. You were greedy. There's a difference. Patricia Morrison objected. Judge Yee sustained. But the damage was done. Cross testified next. Took the stand with disturbing calm. Answered questions like he was discussing the weather. Mr. Cross, why did you target the Morrison family? I didn't target anyone. Jason approached me about a business opportunity. I provided consulting services. You forged Henry Morrison's signature on mortgage documents. Jason asked me to help with paperwork. I assumed he had authority. You orchestrated the failure of the Coastal Heights project. The project failed due to market conditions and regulatory issues. I had no control over environmental regulations. Jennifer Walsh produced emails, phone records, bank transfers, evidence of payments to environmental groups, communications with city inspectors, a paper trail that showed deliberate sabotage. Mr. Cross, you paid the Chesapeake Environmental Coalition $15,000 to file complaints about the Coastal Heights property. That was a donation. I believe in environmental protection. You donated to an organization filing complaints against your own project? I contain multitudes. The gallery stirred. Whispers rippled through the rows of observers. Even the judge looked surprised by the audacity. Mr. Cross, you were dishonorably discharged from the Navy in 2015, court-martialed and convicted by then-Captain Catherine Morrison. For the first time, Cross's expression shifted. The mask cracked slightly. Yes. During sentencing, you threatened Admiral Morrison. You said, and I quote, "I'll destroy everything you care about." I was angry. People say things when they're angry. Did you mean it? I don't recall. You spent 9 years planning revenge against Admiral Morrison. Found her brother, manipulated him into committing fraud, engineered a situation designed to destroy her family and potentially damage her career, all because she did her job 9 years ago. Cross smiled. Actually smiled. I didn't do anything. Jason made his own choices. If his sister's career suffered, that's unfortunate. But I can't be held responsible for family dynamics. I sat in the gallery, watching this performance, feeling cold rage, not hot, not explosive, just cold. When it was my turn to testify, I wore service dress blues, full ribbons, every medal earned over 26 years, psychological warfare through appearance. The prosecutor walked me through my history with Cross. The court-martial, the evidence, the conviction, the threats. Admiral Morrison, how did Chief Petty Officer Cross's crimes affect your ship? Sexual harassment creates a hostile environment that undermines unit cohesion. 3 female sailors came forward. Investigation revealed a pattern spanning years. My duty was to protect my crew and maintain good order and discipline. And his discharge was appropriate? His discharge was mandatory. He was convicted by court-martial. The Uniform Code of Military Justice requires dishonorable discharge for his offenses. Did you have any personal animosity toward him? No, I didn't know him personally. He was a senior enlisted sailor who violated the trust of his position. My feelings were irrelevant. Cross's attorney tried to shake me on cross-examination. Admiral Morrison, isn't it true you've had a contentious relationship with your brother for years? No, I had no relationship with my brother. There's a difference. You never told him about your rank, your achievements, your career. I told him I was in the Navy. I told him I traveled for work. I told him the specifics were classified. He never asked for details. He assumed I was in administration because that assumption made him comfortable. You allowed him to believe a lie. I allowed him to believe what he wanted to believe. I never lied. I simply stopped correcting his assumptions because doing so made family dinners less uncomfortable. So you prioritized comfort over honesty. I prioritized peace over pride. There's a difference. And I learned from that mistake. Silence isn't the same as lying, but it can enable people who refuse to see truth. The attorney shifted tactics. Admiral Morrison, your brother's fraud has been very public. Hasn't that damaged your reputation? Made you less effective as a commanding officer? No, my sailors know I value integrity over family loyalty. That makes me more effective, not less. Even if it means sending your own brother to prison? Especially then. Leadership means making hard choices. If I'm willing to hold family accountable, my crew knows I'll hold everyone accountable equally. That's not a weakness. That's the foundation of trust. The courtroom absorbed my words. Journalists scribbled notes. The jury sat forward in their seats. When I stepped down, Admiral Kendrick was waiting in the hallway. That was the finest testimony I've heard in 40 years. Thank you, sir. The promotion ceremony is scheduled for April 15th. Will you be ready? I've been ready for 26 years. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Returned with verdicts that surprised no one. Jason Morrison, guilty of fraud, guilty of forgery. Sentencing scheduled for February. Daniel Cross, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy, fraud, forgery, identity theft, criminal targeting of a military officer. Sentencing scheduled for March. Outside the courthouse, press swarmed, cameras, microphones, questions shouted from every direction. Admiral Morrison, how does it feel to put your own brother in prison? I stopped. Face the cameras, command voice. I didn't put my brother in prison. His choices did. I believe in accountability. I believe in justice. I believe those principles apply to everyone equally, including family. My brother made decisions that hurt people, including our elderly father. Those decisions have consequences. Do you feel any guilt? I feel sad. Sad that my brother valued money over integrity. Sad that he allowed himself to be manipulated. Sad that our family has been broken by his choices. But I don't feel guilt. I didn't commit fraud. I didn't forge signatures. I didn't steal my father's home. I held people accountable for their actions. That's not something to feel guilty about. What about your promotion? How does this affect your career? My career is built on 26 years of service, 26 years of making hard decisions, 26 years of putting duty before comfort. This situation demonstrates exactly the kind of leadership the Navy needs. Leaders who value truth over convenience. Leaders who understand that real strength sometimes looks like standing alone. I walked away. Let them shout their questions. Let them write their stories. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what anyone thought. February brought Jason's sentencing. 3 years federal prison. Dad attended. I did not. Patricia Morrison represented our interests. Made sure Dad's victim impact statement was read into record. Made sure Jason understood the damage he'd caused. Afterward, Dad called. He cried during sentencing, asked the judge for mercy, said he was sorry. Is he sorry for what he did, or sorry he got caught? I don't know anymore. I used to think I could tell the difference. That's growth, Dad. Painful growth, but growth. March brought Cross's sentencing. 22 years federal prison. I attended this one. Wanted to see his face when the judge delivered the verdict. Wanted him to know I'd survived his revenge plot. Wanted him to understand that trying to destroy me had only made me stronger. The judge was thorough, detailed every crime, every victim, every calculated step in Cross's 9-year plan. Mr. Cross, you spent nearly a decade planning and executing revenge against Admiral Morrison. You manipulated her brother. You defrauded her elderly father. You attempted to damage her career and reputation, all because she held you accountable for crimes you committed. She leaned forward. Your actions demonstrate exactly why you were dishonorably discharged. You lack integrity, honor, and basic human decency. You are a predator who weaponizes trust. You will serve 22 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for 15 years. Cross looked at me as they led him away. His expression held something that might have been respect, or might have been hatred. Impossible to tell. I felt nothing. He'd already taken enough of my energy. He wouldn't get any more. April 15th arrived bright and clear. Perfect Virginia spring day. Cherry blossoms blooming across Norfolk. Temperature hitting 70 degrees. The kind of weather that felt like blessing. The promotion ceremony was held aboard USS George Washington. Hangar Bay decorated with flags and bunting. 500 guests, flag officers in dress blues, sailors in white uniforms, civilian officials in suits, media documenting everything. Dad sat front row, wearing the suit from Mom's funeral, now altered to fit his thinner frame. He looked proud, present, fully present in a way he hadn't been for years. Commander Sarah Mitchell read the citation. Detailed my 26 years of service, deployments, commands, achievements, the kind of career that looked impossible when summarized but had been built one day at a time. Admiral Kendrick presented the 3 stars, removed my 2-star shoulder boards, pinned the new ones. His hand steady, his expression proud. The Secretary of the Navy gave remarks about leadership and integrity, and the importance of holding fast to principles even when it costs everything. Then it was my turn to speak. I stood at the podium, looking out at 500 faces. Sailors I'd commanded, officers I'd served with, Dad in the front row crying, Mrs. Hartford sitting beside him, pearls and perfect posture. 26 years ago, I raised my right hand and swore to support and defend the Constitution. I was 21 years old. I thought I understood what that oath meant. I didn't. Pause. Let the words settle. I learned that defending the Constitution sometimes means defending people who hate you, means holding people accountable even when they're family, means standing alone when standing together requires compromising integrity. Another pause. I spent a lot of years making myself small, letting people underestimate me because their comfort seemed more important than my truth. I let my family assume I was less successful because correcting them felt uncomfortable. I let silence become complicity. I looked at Dad. This year taught me something crucial. Silence is not absence. Silence is choice. And choosing silence to keep peace isn't peaceful, it's surrender. Back to the crowd. I'm Vice Admiral Catherine Morrison. I command carrier strike groups, I brief presidents, I make decisions that affect thousands of lives. And if that makes people uncomfortable, that's not my problem. I'm done making myself small so others can feel big. I'm done hiding achievements to avoid challenging assumptions. I'm done apologizing for being exactly who I earned the right to be. The hangar bay held its collective breath. To every woman watching this, every sailor wondering if you belong, every person who's been told they're too much or not enough, or should just be grateful for whatever scraps they're given. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. And you don't have to make yourself small to make others comfortable. Take up the space you've earned. Speak with the voice you've built. Stand with the strength you've cultivated. I looked at Mrs. Hartford. She nodded, smiled. The kind of smile that carried recognition across generational divides. My mother used to say, "Know your worth." I thought I did, but I confused worth with achievement. I thought if I just accomplished enough, people would see me clearly. I was wrong. Worth isn't something you earn through achievement. Worth is inherent. The only question is whether you claim it. Final pause. I claim my worth, I claim my space, I claim my voice, and I invite you to do the same. The applause started slowly, then built. 500 people standing, clapping, some crying. Dad stood, tears streaming down his face, clapping until his arthritic hands must have hurt. After the ceremony, reception at Harbor Point. The club had insisted, Mrs. Hartford had insisted, Admiral Kendrick had insisted. I wore civilian clothes now, navy blue dress, simple, elegant, the 3-star pin on my lapel the only indication of rank. Mrs. Hartford found me near the champagne fountain. "Admiral Morrison, the board of directors has voted on something I wanted to tell you personally before the announcement." She handed me an envelope, Harbor Point letterhead, official seal. Inside, a letter. "The Harbor Point Country Club Board of Directors has voted unanimously to establish the Vice Admiral Catherine Morrison Leadership Scholarship, annual award of $50,000 for women pursuing military careers, funded in perpetuity through club endowment. Asterisk. Your example of integrity, strength, and grace under pressure represents the values this club should champion. Thank you for your service." I actually cried, standing in the middle of the club that my brother had tried to use as proof of his success, holding a letter that turned his humiliation into my legacy. "Mrs. Hartford, I don't know what to say. Say you'll help us select recipients. Say you'll mentor young women who need to see what strength looks like." "Of course. Of course." She smiled, patted my hand, the gesture maternal despite never having met my mother. "Your mother would be so proud, not just of your rank, of who you've become." Dad approached as Mrs. Hartford walked away. "Katie, can we talk?" We stepped onto the terrace. April evening, cool but not cold. The golf course stretched dark and quiet. I need to apologize. Not for Jason. He's responsible for his own choices. But for me. For never asking, for assuming, for making you feel like your achievements needed to be hidden. "Dad!" "Please, let me finish." His voice shook. "Your mother and I raised you to be independent, to be strong, to fight for what's right. And then when you became those things, I didn't know how to relate to you. You were so successful, so accomplished, and I felt small. So I told myself your work wasn't that important, that military service was just a job, that your real life would start when you found someone to marry, had kids, did the things I understood." He wiped his eyes. "But I was wrong. Your real life has been happening all along, and I missed it. I missed 26 years of being proud of you because I was too insecure to ask questions. You're here now. Is that enough?" "It's a start." We stood together, watching stars appear over Norfolk, father and daughter, strangers becoming familiar. "Will you forgive Jason? Eventually, maybe, when he's served his time, when he's done the work to understand what he did wrong, when he can apologize for the right reasons instead of just wanting forgiveness. But that's years away, maybe longer." "And me, will you forgive me?" "There's nothing to forgive, Dad. You loved me the best way you knew how. You just didn't know me well enough to love me accurately. Now you do. That's not something requiring forgiveness. That's something requiring commitment to do better." "I want to do better." "Then ask me questions. Listen to the answers. Let me be all of who I am, not just the parts that fit your comfort zone. I can do that. 6 months later, October brought cooler evenings and the Admiral's Lounge gathering I now attended regularly. 12 flag officers discussing Pacific strategy, congressional negotiations, the peculiar weight of command. Vice Admiral Rebecca Morrison joined me afterward on the terrace. You've changed since the promotion. More present, more visible. I'm done hiding. Good, we need women who refuse to shrink. Dad called that night with news. He'd joined a grief support group, met a woman named Linda. They'd been having coffee. Was that okay? It's more than okay. Mom would want you to be happy. Love isn't finite, I told him. You can love Mom's memory and still build new relationships. 1 year after the trial, Jason sent a letter from the halfway house. 3 handwritten pages. Understanding what he'd done, why it was wrong, seeing me clearly for the first time. You didn't choose duty over family. You chose integrity over complicity. There's a difference. I read it 3 times. Felt something that might have been the beginning of forgiveness. I didn't respond immediately. He needed to do the work without expectation of reward. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something, maybe not. Either way, I'd be okay. The scholarship program grew. 22-year-old Petty Officer First Class Maria Santos became the second recipient. She approached me with tears in her eyes. This means I can pursue my degree without worrying. Means I can focus on becoming the officer I want to be. What kind of officer is that? The kind who doesn't apologize for being competent. The kind who demands respect instead of asking permission. The kind like you. Then make sure you pay it forward. Mentor the women coming after you. Create space for them. Refuse to let anyone make you small. 2 years passed. Dad sold the house, donated all $800,000 to the scholarship endowment, moved to a condo near the beach, married Linda in a small ceremony where I stood as his best woman. Jason completed probation, moved to Oregon, started a nonprofit helping ex-convicts rebuild their lives. I texted, "Good luck. Proud of you for doing the work." 3 years after the promotion, my phone rang with news. Nomination for full admiral, 4 stars, commander of major fleets. That evening, I walked the Harbor Point golf course alone. November sunset turning everything gold. The scholarship plaque installed near the clubhouse entrance. Vice Admiral Catherine Morrison Leadership Scholarship. Empowering women in military service. 26 years since I'd raised my right hand. 6 years since I'd lost Jack. 3 years since I'd stopped making myself small. Mrs. Hartford texted, "I heard about the nomination. Come to dinner this weekend. We're celebrating." I sat on a bench overlooking the 18th hole until stars appeared. Thought about Mom, about Jack, about all the people who'd shaped me, but also about Dad finding love again, Jason doing the work to rebuild, the young women who'd received the scholarship, the sailors I'd commanded, the junior officers I'd mentored. Legacy meant teaching people they didn't have to make themselves small. Meant showing women that silence could be strength, but voice could be freedom. Meant proving that integrity mattered more than comfort, truth more than peace, worth more than approval. I drove home through Norfolk streets, past the base, past the courthouse, past Dad's old house with new owners and new memories. My apartment waited, quiet, filled with photographs and medals and books on leadership. A life built deliberately, purposefully, without apology. Tomorrow I'd brief the fleet commander. Next week, testify before Congress. Next month, possibly interview for 4-star positions. But tonight, I poured scotch and sat on my balcony and watched Norfolk sleep. Thought about the girl who'd joined the Navy at 21, the woman who'd buried her husband at 41, the admiral who'd stood alone at 47. All the same person, all parts of a whole. And for the first time in my life, I felt complete. Not because someone else made me whole, not because I'd achieved some external validation, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for permission to be myself. I raised my glass to the empty sky. Here's to taking up space. Here's to refusing to shrink. Here's to teaching people how to treat us by treating ourselves with the respect we deserve. The city lights reflected off my glass. The harbor stretched dark and vast. Ships moved through the night, running lights marking safe passage. I was one of those lights now, marking a path for others to follow, showing them it was possible to stand alone and still be strong, to value integrity over approval, to choose truth over comfort. That felt like enough, more than enough. It felt like everything.